So, our alone, we had given you an inkling of a discussion. Of course, that also will be a biggest chunk of a discussion this morning. And before we proceed any further, I would love just to hear also from our panelists this morning. At the top of the hour, we heard from Anyang Nyongo on what is really ailing the sugar sector. Was there any deliberate attempt to try and scuttle, the whole process or the sugar industry in this country for the benefit of some few who actually do not really care about the public health of Kenyans as well? Because a lot of this contraband and the sugarcane that has now been, of course, going inside Kenya and in the market, every nook and cranny of this country is laced with heavy metals. We want to hear from, of course, our panelists today. I'd introduced to you earlier Professor Anyang Nyongo, who's the governor of Kisumu. Also, we do have with us Member of Parliament from Ndaragwa, who is Jeremiah Kioni as well. And we do have as well the Senator of West Pokot. This is Samuel Poghisio, who also is joining us this morning, eagerly awaiting for Okong'o Omogeni to join us much later in the course of the program as well. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right. Let's just hear from Jeremiah Kioni today. In light of what is going on right now, and we know that there are powerful cartels behind what is going on, people from the upper reaches of government, and some of them have been named, but still the investigation is ongoing, so we cannot also put their names forward until the investigation is done. So we see there's a collusion of these cartels with people who are in government are benefiting. But generally, looking at the entire industry in Kenya, sugar industry, do you think there was a general and a deliberate attempt, and as I asked this earlier, to try and scupple the whole process of the sugar industry for the benefit of a few so that we can import and not really have a homegrown solution as far as sugar is concerned?
Thank you, Debarl. One is to say good morning to the viewers, and also...
And it's been a while.
It's been a while, and I'm happy to be in a panel with one of my best governors, Professor Anyang Nyongo. Was not to mention that another good senator, a good leader in this country, Senator Poghisio. But without doubt, we will always have Kenyans who want to benefit at the expense of everybody else. So I don't have any doubt in my mind that there will be individuals who would want to kill any industry that we have for the purposes of personal gain and personal enrichment. And sugar industry has always been a very easy place for people to get quick money. And it's for the fact that you require sugar in very many, other than what we consume daily, you need it in very many other aspects of economic growth. But that is not to say that I'm sure we'll be hearing from the other colleagues, is that we also need to really think hard about the viability of our sugar industries in this country, whether they are still viable, and if they are, what do we need to do if we need to improve them. But that is what is being used, that tool is what is being used by the sugar barons to really cash on that which we cannot grow. And they will. The issue is that we must be determined to bring them to book. And I hope that is what the government is doing. But without doubt, there are chaps who try and benefit from that. I think the advantage that may be there, perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself here, is the fact that we don't have very senior politicians in Parliament.
Yes.
That may be the only reason why things have been slowed down a bit. But they are now using some very powerful business individuals out there.
What do you mean senior politicians and things being slowed down?
You know, when we had very senior government ministers who had both that political power, they had the following, it was a bigger problem. It was they were able to move faster and in a more aggressive manner. And it will take a little bit longer for them to be caught in the tracks. But now you are dealing with persons who don't have the protection of Parliament, so to speak. And I think it is easier to stop them a little bit earlier than it was before.
Right. Let's hear from Honorable Poghisio. Good morning.
Morning. Yes, I just wanted to pick up from where my brother has been, has really just brought us to think about sugar. The sugar cartels have been there forever. It's actually been a big problem right from, I can say that maybe about 20 years ago. Every once in a while we hear of sugar imports which were not authorized, and a few people benefited. And like I've said here before, the villager can tell you who is involved. We just don't get them involved in the investigations enough, because anybody who can see where the sugar is, and that's how they have really helped us to even find those which are there. The cartels in the sugar industry are known. You can easily find either in their lifestyle or something else, what's happening. They know each other very well. But because we've allowed it to grow and totally grow unchecked, we are going to have we're having a big problem right now. We're now reached a point where they can import anything, bring in anything. And I think that's where we needed to have checked. Either we look the other way, or we've been partly absorbed into who they are. And let me just say that the fact that there are no politicians doesn't mean that there are no politicians involved in this thing. So I think we should turn our eyes there. Finally, I just want to say that I don't know about the future of sugar growing in this country. It's a debate we must take seriously, whether we still need people to grow sugar. And if we do, then we must fight these other cartels very seriously. Because for economic purposes, which is better? Let's get to that argument and really help the economy through the people on the ground.
All right, thank you. So, so there's no hope at all. Should we maybe devolve these functions, and it should not just remain solely a function of the national government?
I agree with my colleagues. Thank you very much, Jeremiah, for your compliments. I haven't seen you for a long time, but yeah. Thanks for coming. Well, you know, it's very clear that if you look at the history of the sugar industry,
yes,
there was a time when the sugar industry was doing very well. Mumias was doing very well. It was quoted at the stock exchange. Moroni was doing very well. Yes. The Moroni town was thriving. Chemelis was doing very well. I'm a farmer there, I know that. Miwani was doing very well. Miwani went down in 1978. Miwani is the one. Yeah, Miwani is the one who has suffered greatest. And again, Miwani suffered because of the sugar cartels. You know, it was hit very badly, and has been is the longest which has been in receivership. But if you look at the manner in which the sugar industry has gone down, it has gone down for two things. One, mismanagement in the industries by managers appointed by the state, who are aiding and abetting the looting of those industries by state-connected individuals. That was one. Secondly, the importation of cheap imported sugar, which then invaded the market, and the sugar in the factories could not be sold.
Yes.
There was frequently when we had to intervene to get this sugar sold and get government to deal with the importation of cheap sugar. Now is a major crisis, because with the privatization in the air, the sugar barons say we now have an opportunity really to sink these factories and buy them cheaply. Then when we own them, we as the owners can decide to get rid of them and say sugar industry is not viable, and then we can now trade this cheap sugar legally. This has been the historical sequence of events in the sugar industry. Now we as the Lake Region Economic Bloc governors, we sat down and said, look, the sugar industry is still viable. One, if the following are done. Those measures that were taken to make it difficult for the industry to function must be corrected. One of them was to do away with the sugar board, and a very dubious arrangement that all these agricultural entities must be amalgamated. The rationale behind amalgamating them, I did not understand. Once you amalgamate them, then the focus that the state gives to every particular crop disappears, diminishes. And that has happened to coffee, tea, everything else. That's why some the 4 state-owned enterprises that cause dealing with the cashew nuts, I don't know what, cannot perform well. Yeah. Secondly, inside the organization of sugar factory zones, for example, in Western Kenya, there was something called zoning, which meant that each factory with a nucleus estate and outgrowers, that was its zone of operation. The sugar levy was used for other factories to give loans to the farmers so that they could grow sugar, deliver it to the factories, then the factory would then deduct what the farmer is loaned, and the thing would continue. It was working very well. They removed the sugar levy, they removed the zoning, they created independent sugar industries like West Kenya, Kabras, I don't know, without any nucleus estate. Now these factories were meant to foray for sugar anyway, okay? Now, of course, you could never tell whether they get enough sugar to crush. But when they never crushed sugar, they imported, you see, and bagged it there. So they are the most buoyant factories in Western Kenya and the sugar belt in Nyanza. Yet they don't have nucleus estate, which means they're purely depending, largely depending on imported sugar.
Yes.
Very cheaply. So they are growing when the state-owned sugar enterprises are dying. Now, we gave a memorandum to the Ministry of Agriculture, which was very simple. One, do the following: restore the zoning, restore sugar levy, stop the import of cheap sugar, let the factories be capitalized, because it's because of the state mismanagement that they have gone down. Don't blame the farmers. The farmers are always working very hard in delivering their cane. Now they cannot deliver the cane because you people have colluded with the barons importing cheap sugar like you are seeing here. Now they are even bringing poisonous sugar from Brazil.
Yes.
Brazilian raw sugar marked not fit for human consumption. And you want to release it in the market. I think, and there's a text, I think there's a WhatsApp message going on. I've received it, which is naming these barons, but we dare not name them, because if you name them and get out of this studio, your neck would be chopped. I don't want my neck to be chopped.
Yes.
But let those who are in the state know that this is known. They are not hiding anything from the public.
Right, so maybe those are leads as well. If they've been named, and of course we've seen those names, people who are behind this, and as you've said, yes, they're prospering. Well, we don't have the nucleus around them, to feed them with sugar as well. So how does that really happen? And it really flies, in the face of conscience that, yes, this is deliberately a poisonous, contraband that we do have, laced with heavy metals, yet they want to feed it to the public. Let's hear from Senator Okong'o Omogeni. Good to see you. Good morning.
Morning, Debarl.
Yes.
Yes.
You weigh in on the sugar cartels and, of course, the heavy metals within the sugar as well?
I think, Debarl, we've just seen in the budget estimates that were read to Parliament,
yes,
that NSIS is one of the heavily funded public entities. And I have no doubt in my mind, Debarl, that they have the capability, they have the human resource to name who are these sugar barons. And I think this was started with a meeting that was convened by the president himself in State House. And he actually undertook to lead the war against contraband. And I think if you have seen what has happened in the last 3 weeks,
yes,
it's not that these things have not been coming in. It's only that we have now a vigorous war, against the contraband. But I think what is lacking, and I think this is the only country in the world where you import, stuff that is meant for human consumption, that is poisonous,
yes,
and you let it in through our borders. Because if we want to be serious on this war, we should have also seen heads rolling. Really, how did this sugar in the first place get into the country? Because you have seen this sugar is being found in various centers in this country. You find it in Kitui, you find it in Western Kenya, you find it in Isili. It means that somebody somewhere is sleeping on their job. And if we don't make people to be, hold people accountable, take action against public officers who are sleeping on the job, we will never solve this problem. I'm telling you, in countries where really people are held accountable, you cannot see this happening, for example, in the US or in Australia,
Yes.
and somebody will just be in office earning a salary. So I think we are now moving towards the right direction, but we really need to see action. I've just seen in the papers that a tycoon was arrested, but we really need to know the faces behind this cartel, because oftentimes, Debarl, people are using some ghosts behind them,
Yes.
to cover the real guys who are importing this sugar.
Yes.
And they are, I think, the who is who in this country. So we really need to be to see serious action being taken by the government. We have various agencies that have the ability to take serious action, because we should never joke really with the life of Kenyans. Sure. And number two, you know, we are killing our industries. Yeah. If we really want to create jobs for our young people, and one of the major problems that we have in this country is unemployment. And the private sector has been crying, telling the government, please protect the local industries so that they can grow and create more job opportunities. Yes. So unless we, as a country, realize that these importations are not serving us, really. Look, it is sad. Just 2 weeks ago, is it Moroni Sugar Company? Yeah. Folded, closed. How many people have lost jobs there? What is the revenue KRA is going to lose from that, you know, folding up of that company? It's a lot. So we as a country are not gaining, and I think we need to see really serious action being taken by the government, and those responsible, those holding various offices, should really be serious in ensuring that we deal with this issue of contraband once and for all.
Right. Yes.
I'd really like to emphasize what the senator is saying. But look at page 8 of the Nation. Page 8 of the Nation.
Yep.
That article by Shaban Makoha.
Page 8. Let me run over there.
Book it there. Yeah. The article by Shaban Makoha.
Page 8.
Yeah. Of the Nation.
Yeah. Tycoon in dirty sugar.
Down.
Down.
Yeah. MP's council license of farm linked to poisonous sugar. I would not just say council license. Arrest.
Yes.
And try.
They should begin there.
Yeah.
By arresting.
And I just want to, and they are very specific. Let me thank Mheshimiwa Ayu Savula and Justice Moronga. Savula MP for Lugari, Moronga MP for Matungu. Now here, Savula questioned why the officers who raided the go-downs at Pan Pepper Mills and West Sugar Factory did not make arrests after seizing 59,000 bags of the poisonous sugar at the Webuye go-downs last Thursday. He added that the Pan Pepper Mills should also have its license revoked for keeping the illegal consignment. Now, he just added what he called was arrest. So why this mischievous headline?
Yes.
The papers are also not helping us.
So we didn't put
I mean, say arrest rather than cancel. You know,
right.
because he just added. That was not his message.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's be fair to the MP. We want Kenyans to know every step that is being made in the war against the non-consumable sugar that was being sold to suspecting customers, said Mr. Savula. Where Sugar Factory in Malava, Kakamega, and the Pan Pepper Mills in Webuye, Bungoma County, are owned by Rai Holdings Limited. So we know the fellow. On Thursday last week, detectives stormed the go-downs in Webuye and impounded the 59,000 bags of contraband sugar packed in 50 kg bags. They then moved to West Sugar Factory premises in Malava, where they spent the better part of the day in a closed-door meeting with the management. Now, what the senator is saying is here.
Yes.
The MPs have said it.
So
what is NIS doing? What is the state doing? And then they have all the history, because NIS must have the history of how sugar has been imported, contraband, over the years. Though that history, that record, sitting with economic intelligence in NIS, should now be brought forth so that we deal with this problem once and for all. Yes, and you help us in Nyanza. Like the senator say, the farmers came to me and they keep on sending me messages. They can't then send their kids to school. They can't go to hospital. It's miserable.
And isn't it also consternating that I think a year or two we had the Rai family buying the Pan Paper you know.
Yes, that's
millions.
another one.
Yeah,
And
for a song, actually.
for a song, 1 billion.
Yeah, 1 billion shillings.
And we know who was behind it. You know,
Whereas it was meant, maybe it was meant for this.
Yes, we suspect, right? We suspect that actually that was just a camouflage for actually maybe using that as a conduit to, you know, also have a conveyor belt for this particular contraband, so to speak. I don't know what you would say, Jeremiah Kioni.
I'm told there was also a little bit of this, maybe not a little bit of the sugar, but there's quite a bit of the sugar that was also found at Karao. And yes, in some go-downs there, and likely that we are going to find more today at Nyahururu.
Yes.
So even Nyandarua, we could also be exposed to this. And of course, we have a market also, because we do consume sugar. But I think one of the things, perhaps just to not disagree, but a different point of looking at this would be that we have to fight corruption. We must make arrests.
Yes.
Let the people arrested, if they think they should, let them come up and say who is their godfather if they have one. But we should not, let's avoid the speculation game. Because if we start speculating too much, we will divert the attention on fighting corruption. What I believe in this country now is that you cannot be able to get to do something of this nature without involving a chain of people. So if you are the one found doing it, arrest that person. Let him say who sent him. But let us not start looking for the person who sent that person, because that person has already committed an offense himself. Because it's in looking for this, and they are there, but it is in looking for these sugar daddies, if I may call them that we lose the war. Because we now start becoming political, we politicize the whole thing. I would rather the whole chain of people, like it has been done at awareness, get everybody. Everybody will give his story, and we want to hear it from them, because they must know. Instead of us, and we support that. Because we start looking for these big persons who may have not been, who are not going to, you may not find their fingers on it, we then lose it. If we stop being used as agents by the big boys, so to speak, if they are such big boys, this corruption thing will come down. Because they themselves will never go to Mombasa port and start packing those things. You will never find them in Brazil buying the sugar themselves. These people who've been used are the ones who must be made to suffer, so that we stop being used for criminal activity by others. We cannot, because nobody will hold a gun on you and tell you, go and steal this sugar. Oh, but you also are a beneficiary of it. So let's deal with corruption, and eventually we'll get to the big people if they are there. But let us not, if we start looking for the big boys and say we should look for, get them, we will lose the whole thing, Debarl. And I'm not trying to exonerate anybody in that process. But how do we win this war against corruption?
But Kenyans have been complaining that why aren't we getting the big fish? Why are we going for the small fish?
Right? You know,
and still, we still have this shadow government. It's not even a shadow government. It is a shadow government. People who are in the upper reaches, maybe of government, or people influencing government officials to perpetrate this evil.
Why come to me, for example, come to me as a member of parliament for Ndaragwa, because you think that the fact that there is some sugar in Nyandarua, the likely person is so and so and so and so, and I am just giving an example. And then we are in court for 2-3 years, you have nothing against me. The people who are really involved, the people who you found with the sugar, have another opportunity to deal with another person, perhaps the correct person, and they continue with the corruption chain. Deal with everybody, including the messengers. They will eventually tell you who it is that is involved in this.
But you don't know.
So if we continue...
They really have an army of messengers in this country. Right?
Debarl,
it is like what? A tentacle on an octopus. You'll cut it, it will atrophy.
But
of course,
Debarl,
then it will grow again.
I have just been given some water here by your person. If the water has some mercury in it, you want us to start asking you where is the mercury. Let this guy who's brought water be dealt with first. He will eventually tell us how you worked on it in the kitchen later. But if we let him off and we start chasing you, we will never get anywhere. He will continue giving mercury to another person.
No, the question is, we've always been doing it that
No, we haven't given that support. The support that we have been giving is look for these big guys. The Kenyans want to see the MPs, and I'm telling you, we now don't have cabinet ministers in parliament. Why we are making some progress, I believe, is because the Poghisos of yesterday, who are very powerful ministers, now are in a position to say, you are stealing from across this side. But before, we were all entangled in it. And I think we need to give this, and I am not saying we should not look for the big boys, but look for them through this guy who brought the water with mercury. He will tell you how mercury got into the kitchen. But if you start looking for Debarl and there is no link, you will lose these cases. And we'll continue back to where we were.
All right, let's hear from Poghisio. What do you think?
I want to agree that the whole spectrum be looked at, not just the small parts. The small people, by the way, are always arrested. They're always arrested, and the big people never get arrested. And I agree. I mean, that's where Kenyans are saying, when are we going to see the arrest of the real owners of this thing? So while I agree with my friend here for some of the things, I also think that what he's basically saying is, let's make sure the institutions that are charged with arresting, investigating, intelligence gathering, let them do their work without much interference. Let it be said that they know, and I hope they know who is really behind these things, so that while they're getting information from the small person, the intelligence they have, which is not too complicated. If you drink that water and you know it came from this agent, you also know who Debarl is, don't you think? We also know it's the head of that thing is Debarl, that company. So where we have information, there should be no time delayed in arresting people, even if they are the biggest people where. So I want to just agree that the industry called the sugar industry is confusing Mwananchi kabisa. You know, Trans Nzoia, and it's now spilling into West Pokot. People are beginning to grow sugar, and I've been asking, why are they growing sugar? There's a lot of sugar being grown in Trans Nzoia right now. Yeah. And it's going to spill into West Pokot because people think it is something viable. And so what are we going to do now when the people who have been growing sugar themselves are not advising us not to continue to grow sugar? You know. So, but do we have the future of the country at heart? Yesterday is it 2 days ago, the Day of the African Child? Yes. The future of that child without the sugar industry, without really developing our sugar industry, where's the jobs? Where are the jobs? Where is the income for the mothers and fathers so that they can support their children to go to school? It used to be very well organized, and I think that's what the counties need to come back to. Governors like our friend here, Professor, need to demand more space in this thing. Organize this thing. You know, I don't know whether you know what it means to be given a board to run your sugar industry. People who have completely no attachment to the sugar itself. People are appointed who have idea, no commitment to it. They have no interest in it. And there's a whole chunk of people that you have to pay allowances for. If the running of the sugar industry is brought back to a smart organization, yes, we should be able to revive it. And of course, I mean, there's this sugar which is already written here, not fit for human consumption. How do they get to the people, to our people directly? And I think those investigations, people should be arrested. I don't think there are certain things which we cannot allow, for example, what Kioni is saying. If it is directly going to harm people, like this sugar, it's got heavy metals. Why wait? Why wait? If you know the person, you must stop it immediately. We must stop it at that level immediately. And I think that's when we need to stop it so that people learn a lesson not to bring in more, so that we can actually fight impunity.
Right. And I think, the chain we are talking about is, you know, there's no way you can get sugar from Brazil without wiring money to Brazil. Yeah. I don't think you can go to a bank, withdraw money, put in a briefcase, take a plane to Brazil and pay it in cash. So there is a chain. If you go to the bank, you will know the company that wired the money to Brazil. And when the goods are coming in, the bill of lading will indicate who has ordered the consignment, how did it come in. Then at our border control, the point of entry, we should be able to track and know the officer that cleared this sugar into the market. Because, who was on duty on that particular day? Who cleared this poisonous sugar into the market? Unless that officer. Yeah, begin there, because, I mean, you know, if you don't deal with the officer who is the one assisting the people who are in this cartel to bring in the sugar.
Yes.
You will deal with the owner of this sugar today. Next week, another person will use the same office and import the same poisonous sugar into the market.
Yes.
So unless we deal with that person, because there's somebody we have entrusted with our own safety,
Yes.
who at the border will say, no, this one we will not allow in, this one is fit for human consumption, it can come in. You know, unless we are able to deal with that problem at that level, it will still recur next year. I'm telling you, it will just be like you deal with this one today, tomorrow you will even deal with a worse issue. And I think the issue of contraband goods is not just limited to sugar. You see people are buying torches around, imported, and
counterfeits.
And they use it for 3 days, they are gone. What is the Kenya Bureau of Standards doing?
Good. And we'll come back to that, but of course we want to see also what is happening internationally so far as well. And we continue with the conversation apace here with our panelists. I'm holding court this morning with Professor Anyang Nyongo, who's the governor of Kisumu, also Jeremiah Kioni, who is member of parliament from Ndaragwa, also is the chair of the Constitutional Oversight Implementation Oversight Authority, also committee in the parliament. Also we do have with us Senator Samuel Poghisio, who is senator from West Pokot, and also we do have with us Okong'o Omogeni, who is a member of parliament, the senator from Nyamira as well. Prof, well, we promised when we circle back that we should, and this was a question that was being raised by Okong'o Omogeni as well, the role of Kenya Bureau of Standards. And in this time when we have everything that is digitized, where are we still using stickers? Because anyone can actually go and print the stickers from River Road, knowing how Kenyans are very cunning nowadays. Why can't we have the radio frequency identification? That yes, we can see the dates, we can see all the details actually encapsulated in that particular chip. So if we just scan it, we can have all the details of the officer who actually maybe oversaw or was actually, you know, trying to get the records or get the verification or the chemical composition of this particular sugar or anything or any other product for that matter. So that at least there is tracking from the last officer and the where and how also the route of this particular product went to the shelves and lastly into the market.
I agree with you. I mean, Kenya Bureau of Standards way of putting their signs that this is approved by Kenya Bureau of Standards is the most rudimentary. I think it belongs perhaps to the 1960s, 1970s, because they should do exactly what you say. And Kenya Bureau of Standards should work very closely with the National Intelligence Service Economic Intelligence Section. I mean, NIS should now forget the old thing they used to do under the special branch when they were hunting for politicians. That's not very useful in this country now at the moment. The war we are really fighting is this dangerous war of corruption and counter-terrorism and all that.
Yes.
So they should go a notch higher and begin putting their stamp of approval in a much more scientific and technologically savvy way to defend us from these contraband goods. Secondly, let me just add to what my friend Jeremiah Kioni was saying earlier about mercury and the cap. Now, we have seen what happened in NYS recently.
Yes.
It was exactly that. You get the mercury in the cap and you pursue it to where it came from, okay? Now, since the NYS experience is so current, the NIS and the whole government machinery should descend on the sugar industry and solve the problem once and for all. Senator Omogeni has said very clearly that you don't carry money in a bank like Kaburu and walk with it to Brazil. You know, you use the banking system.
Yes.
And NIS and KBS should do that, find out how was this sugar imported from Brazil, who paid, and then we'll get a lot of information. I have a feeling that lip service to corruption demoralizes wananchi. And let me thank Jeremiah for coming back to the lawmaking body. I think we missed you for 5 good years. Thank you very much. But I think, please, those who are concerned in government, take Kenyans seriously. Let not the NYS saga be an isolated event. Let it now be the mode of dealing with these things when they're discovered, and particularly for the sugar industries, which support the life of about 5 million people. It should be taken very seriously.
All right, let's hear from Jeremiah Kioni.
I think I agree totally with what Professor has said. But, and again, the persons in charge at the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, or Standards, sorry, need also to tell us what they've been doing. I mean, if there are technology or changes that we need to make so that they can perform better, we should see them doing it. And they should also not be left off the hook. I remember during 10th Parliament, there was a case that we had where we had imported second-hand cars that were more than 8 years, some of them 10, 15 years. And when we followed, it was because the persons in charge at KBS deliberately allowed that to happen. And they used a loophole in the law to deal with it. We tried to impeach the cabinet then in charge of that process. But we didn't quite succeed because, again, the cabinet minister was in parliament, and he had been in parliament longer than us. He knew how to deal with such simple threats, according to him. And he actually dealt with it. This is one of the reasons why I celebrate the absence of ministers within parliament, because with the very, very young, new members of parliament, they will always be manipulated. When you have the seniors of the like of my colleagues here in cabinet, they will be seeing through them. But I think anything that we are consuming, using in one way or another, has been certified by KBS for our consumption, either because it's been done at River Road or it has been done through their offices, but for the reason that there is areas they need also to tighten up. And we cannot hold any other person responsible. It's them. Even as we trace all these fathers who are playing with Kenyans' life, we cannot also let them off the hook. They should answer to it, and in the process of purging everybody, they should also see the door.
They should also see the door. So
yes.
The stock excuse about, yes, this is people who are imitating and coming with counterfeit stamps, that should not fly with us. They should have a more robust, more, a foolproof way of coming with stamp of approvals that can actually be...
Even before you get to very complicated issues like sugar, like my colleagues have been mentioning, a torch. You buy a torch, and we have them, they are being sold to us, and 3 days later, it is, I don't know what it is, because you can't use anything, it's nothing. And 3 days, they should have caught up with some of these things much earlier. They should have made enough noise. Even if enough noise, you can even make noise of all these products just by being in Nairobi and saying it. But they are mum. So why wouldn't you want to hold it together with the others and fight them?
So where is the safety of the country, where we have even maize, which is contaminated by aflatoxin, still in the market, and we have people who are, adversely affected by this contaminated maize again. So it seems there is a big breakdown when it comes to, the safety of the citizenry as well. Senator Poghisio.
I think that KEBS should tell us if it is the money they don't have enough, is it personnel they don't have enough, or don't they train the people well enough? It's good for them to come open. What is the problem? Because if we allow anything to come in which is not within the standards, we'll get those things not only in the sugar and the whatever, the torches and so on, but we'll soon get those things in our spare parts. And they'll be in our vehicles, they'll be in our aircrafts, they'll go into places which now will cause much more damage to us. And so we need to understand what is the problem with KEBS. Is it corruption, so they can be helped to fight it? Is it that they don't have enough support? And I think that's why Parliament is there to appropriate monies and to them. Otherwise, the fight we're having now, we're looking at the things that we can see, but there are very many things that KEBS does, of equipment and parts, which go into very essential parts of the country. So we need to be extremely careful how we handle this whole issue.
Thank you. Right, let us hear from Okong'o.
I think,
yes.
Yeah, I think Kenyans need to realize that their safety is in the hands of KEBS. And so important is the role that they play that it even starts from the country of origin, where the goods are being imported from. Debarl, you can't, like the issue Honorable Kioni is talking about, you cannot import a vehicle into this country before the representative of KEBS in the country of origin certifies that that country is fit to enter the Kenyan market. I mean, that is the kind of important role that KEBS plays in the life of Kenyans. And it even includes environmental safety.
Yes.
You know, that certification must be issued by their agent in the country of origin before the car comes in. In terms of anything that we consume, and that touches on the safety of Kenyans, it cannot enter the market without certification of Kenya Bureau of Standards. So whether we like it or not, the responsibility is with the Kenya Bureau of Standards. If we find this poisonous sugar in the market, KEBS must answer some questions. If we find substandard goods in the market, may it be tires. You know, you're talking about even accidents on our roads. If you find a substandard tire that bursts and an accident occurs, there must be somebody at KEBS who has allowed substandard tires to enter the market.
And there has to be traceability, even to the officer who approved it.
Yes.
So
and
a stamp will not just do it.
It will not. And then look at their powers. You know, these guys have powers. They can today raid any shop and impound contraband goods. So you can see the kind of powers that somebody's talking about Parliament. You can see the kind of powers that Parliament has given the Kenya Bureau of Standards. So really, it's not an issue of there being weakness in the law. It is an issue of people not understanding the critical role. And I want to emphasize, it is so critical that it touches the life of everybody. If, as we live here today, you will take a bottle of water. That water, it's only KEBS which can tell you that water is saved for your consumption. There is even a worse serious problem. Go to Kenya Medical Supplies Alliance. You saw, I think about 2 months ago, expired drugs were being repackaged in somewhere in Parklands and being released to the market. Now, really, what is the kind of desperation we have put our people in? You take water, contaminated. Water is contaminated. You want to go for medicine, you are taking contaminated medicine.
Maize flour contaminated.
You know,
yesterday in the morning contaminated.
Yeah, I mean,
the water you're drinking, you're not sure if it's potable.
Yeah, even if you say you don't want to take sugar, you'll go to the chemist and buy expired drugs. So really, you know, if somebody at KEBS is watching this morning, they really need, first of all, to appreciate and understand the kind of faith Kenyans have placed in that organization. It is only them who can ensure that we are safe. If they sleep on their job, we're going to see Kenyans dying either through accidents.
We will be remiss if you don't mention also the Kenya
counterfeit agency. Yes.
Because in all this, they remain very minimal as well. What is their function? What is their purpose? Do they just come to actually now react when it is still in the market, or where do we have them as a buffer between Mwananchi and the products?
Actually, Debarl, the two bodies, Kenya Counterfeit and Kenya Bureau of Standards, should work hand in hand. And together with even Kenya Revenue Authority. Because Kenya Revenue Authority should not collect taxes on contraband goods coming to the market unless there is certification from the Kenya Bureau of Standards that those goods are safe to enter the Kenyan market. And this Kenya Counterfeit body, I think also enjoys the same powers with the Kenya Bureau of Standards. They can, even assuming we have made a mistake in the past and these goods are in the market, they can start that war today. They can start that war today, and we can do a cleanup and get rid of all these goods that are really not fit for the Kenyan market. So really there should be a wake-up call on bodies that should ensure the safety of Kenyans.
Thank you. Right.
And even where they think that there are gaps in the law, and I want to agree with the Senator, I think we have some of the very quite elaborate legal provisions in our statute. Even where they think the areas that have gaps, like I can see the EACC is saying at the back page of the nation, say fix the law to block money laundering. If there are those gaps, parliamentary committees are there, waiting for them. Let them suggest the amendments. They should not come back to the committees and say, oh, there is this gap. They should suggest those amendments. We will fix them. I see what they are mentioning here. And if they were to bring it to the CIOC, and of course we look at the veracity of it, if it and how it impacts on many other issues, including wide consultation, we will make those amendments.
Yes.
We will.
that
Yes.
just to emphasize what Senator Kioni is saying, you know, there's what we call professionalism. We forget that these days people get into these positions, cabs, whatnot, without really having the professional background to do the job they should be doing.
Yes.
And they are young, they are not professionals, and this is what's ruining a lot of our institutions. The commitment to professionalism, to serving the public, and while we are going through this period of what I would call reform,
yes.
I would hope it is reform, this period of reinvigorating state institutions, let us respect professionalism and let professionals in these positions do their work professionally. Now, you get another state enterprise called environmental.
National Environmental
NEMA.
NEMA, yes.
I mean, that one is
Management
really
Authority.
being used to stifle entrepreneurship, you know. I have a case of a young man with a 10-acre plot somewhere near Moroni. He wants to grow some crop, okay? He's starting up, you know, he has a very good idea. NEMA wants to have him do an impact assessment study on how that crop is going to have on the environment. Fine. NEMA should go to the necessary authorities in the agricultural profession and find out whether growing that crop has any environmental consequences. But what is worse, they want for him to give them 60,000 shillings. Now, you're beginning an enterprise as a young man.
For what now?
For a license, for NEMA to approve the thing. Now, I've known several cases where NEMA is actually using its role of impact assessment.
So is that a statutory fee, or how, is that a statutory fee from NEMA, or
professional? I mean, you have to pay some fees to NEMA when they are coming to do an impact assessment study.
Yes, yes.
But what I would say, in order to encourage entrepreneurship, maybe they can do that study, which is professionally done and professionally priced, and tell you, you are young in business, we'll give you credit. You will pay this money as you do your work, which you have approved. Because of obviously growing that crop is going to be economically viable. You'll get something. So you find these state institutions really are not really imaginative regarding what they should be facilitating. Let me tell you, in the 60s, when bodies like ICD started with people like Joe and Yui, you know, all these state organizations, even National Housing Corporation, I remember when people like Samuel Anyang Nyongo were head of National Housing Corporation, they were calling young men like me, look, we are building houses in Nyong'o estate. We want people like you to come and buy. The loan is available. We can teach you how to access these things. Now, state corporations were really started to enable the economy to grow, to enable Africans who did not have capital to get capital. NEMA is there to enable the economy to grow, to make sure the environment is protected when people are doing economic development. It is not there as a punitive organization to extract money from poor entrepreneurs beginning their journey from A. At the same time, bodies like KBS, Kenya Bureau of Standards, were there to protect the industries that are doing business in this country, to make sure that consumer is protected, not for individuals, those particular state enterprises, then to make money, wax rich without doing their job. Debarl, that's what I want to say today, because I have to leave you.
You have to leave. So you don't want to interrogate a bit on, just briefly, I know you have to go, because you told me by 7:30 you should be out of the studio.
Yeah.
And I need to, but in terms of the budget reading that we had just last week on Thursday, I don't know what was your take home. Were you really happy by, the pronouncement from the cabinet secretary?
When you say it's a poor man's budget, it's a Robin Hood budget. Robbing the rich to pay, and then you don't tax the rich, okay? All the things that you see there are what the poor man is going to be, to bear the burden. I think there's a problem there. Secondly, yes, we have to pay the debt, but you remember quite a number of us questioned the debts that we are inheriting from the standard gauge railway, especially over these deals on land, which was then put on the debt on the standard gauge railway. I think we should be very clear. Where information is coming out now that land was bought at inflated prices, and that some of the land was bought off the grid.
Yes.
Let that money be recuperated. so that the common man doesn't have to bear the debt. Let that money be used. And now look at Swazuri. This is a man that was given a very important responsibility, the National Land Commission. Rather than use that land commission to make sure that economy is enabled to grow, enterprises like SGR are done properly with land available without putting debt on the nation. Look at what he did. Now, I don't think this can be said without evidence behind it, especially put on the top of this newspaper like The Standard. The Standard is not crazy to put that on the top page without some evidence, without some objective facts. So if the budget is loading on us a lot of money as poor consumers and poor taxpayers, you know, let that money come from this kind of source now that we are fighting corruption. Let that money be used to give Rotich so that it takes the burden of the poor fellow who need the SGR to grow, so that the economy can grow.
Right, thank you, Prof. Thank you for your input this morning. We have to let you go as well.
And as you let him go, I think I want to, on these appointments, because I don't know who's been appointed recently to KEBS and even at the counterfeit agency. They are likely to continue in the same way. I don't see us being able to change that pattern where political payback or some, you are not going to be, you know, the people who don't make it in politics or who supported you financially in politics may be asking, what about me? And because of that, you end up appointing them in this position. I think because that seems like it will continue for a while, and certainly when the four of us are still alive. I think we may need to just assign them, those persons who've been appointed, assign them some peripheral things that have no impact on the management. Leave the management of these institutions to professionals so that we don't have persons appointed because of political reasons, being the ones in charge of those agencies and then being influenced from a political angle. Appointments should be there because people need a livelihood. You know, you can't condemn people for being appointed. But let the bodies be managed in a professional manner. I think that is the spirit of the Constitution. So that when you're punishing those persons, you are not punishing them for having made some political decisions, but for political professional negligence in the works that they have been charged with in the past. Perhaps also from time to time, let us change the currency, the features of our notes. But if now, going back to what you were saying, a little bit of the money that is maybe have found its way to Brazil could be the money that came from NYS. If we change the features of our notes, it will cost us money. But those who are hiding money in the ceilings, then it will just become like toilet paper. They will have to bring it out and we'll catch up with them because we'll ask them, where did you get all this money from? Or then it will rot in the ceiling. Because I think there is a lot of this money that has been stashed away and you cannot trace it through the banks. So changing the features on our notes, it will cost us money, but it will...
The conversation has been ongoing with the Central Bank of Kenya. I don't know why it's been
for another reason, for the reason that we need to perhaps move on as provided for in the Constitution. But I'm saying for us to catch up with, where did these people keep this money that they rooted from this organization? If we change the features on our notes, we may also discourage in going into the future, because they'll hide it until 2022, they'll bring it out, they'll flush it, they'll influence the politics, we'll get them into offices, and this may continue.
Right. Thank you.